What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome in, everybody. It is that wonderful time of year, September 8th. Today, as we are recording in about an hour and 6 minutes, we will kick off the NFL season. So we are recording here on Thursday. So slight little change. We won't be covering the Thursday night game just because of time constraints, but hopefully you enjoy the Rams and Bills tonight. By the time you listen to this, that will be done and dusted, but it's now time to introduce my team to you all. As always, the gang back together. Let's start with Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing today, sir?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. It's football season, my favorite season right after Christmas, I think, and college basketball. In Major League Baseball. It's absolutely one of the top four.
Got it. Everything but hockey and basketball. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I would also be remiss. Obviously, today is the 8th. We're not breaking any news here. The Queen, someone who I think we all thought would live forever. She has passed. So we don't want to be too jubilant, but it is football season. But I will take the time to kind of shout that out. And as always with us, the Saints King, Coach Brandon Lupian. You can find Coach at Portland 76er on Twitter. Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, catching up with the both of you, and looking forward to a fun 2023 NFL season, right?
Yeah, it's here. The weather, I mean, I'm sure wherever you're listening, it's rather warm. It's very warm out here in Southern California, even with the cloud cover. We're still looking about like 93 today. But yeah, it is football season, and it's time now to kind of dive in to the games and just a quick little refresher. Obviously, over the last few years, we broke down every game every week, and it's gone about 2 hours. And as much as we love talking sports and things like that, we wanted to kind of condense it this year. So we're going to be pretty much talking about the top 10 games on our plate. Obviously, we're going to be talking about our individual teams and divisions, and then some other interesting games. But as I told the guys before, if you want any of our opinions on the Jaguars Texans, hit us up on Twitter, but we're not going to take the time to go over that. So enjoy the weekend. But without further ado, we will start off with the first game we'll be talking about. I think maybe the best game of the weekend not being played tonight. That is the Las Vegas Raiders at the Los Angeles Chargers. Currently, the home team Chargers are 3.5-point favorites. The over-under sits at 52. I use Vegas Insider for a lot of these, so it's kind of the consensus. So you can find things in different areas, but for the consensus, that's what I would say. Raider Jim, the floor is yours. The season begins. Raiders, Chargers 3.5-point favorites.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. If you look at all the professional prognosticators out there, as you and I talked last week, a lot of folks are pegging the Raiders to not even get 10 victories this year like they did last year. They're calling them 8.5 to 9 games is what they're going to win. So I guess there's going to be a tie in the mix, according to some people. But going into the game on Sunday, I know they are the 3.5 point underdog, depending on which book you're looking at. I would take the Raiders +4 all day long. I will tell you what, it is definitely a more improved team than it was last year, and they were even better than the year before. Slowly but surely, since they moved on from Chucky, they are progressing in the right direction. I think they're going to have a better offensive line than they did last year, and you're going to see a more robust running game, that's for sure. Josh Jacobs finally realized he better run like he's never run before, or there are guys waiting to take his place now. They've got a nice fullback in there, big dude. He's like 6'5", 230, something like that. He's a journeyman, but we'll see what he can do. Sometimes the Raiders have always been famous for bringing in these journeymen who maybe are on their last chance or it's their second chance, and they take full advantage of that. And something about putting on that silver and black sometimes brings out the best of these guys. On the defensive side of the ball, you know what? They've beefed up the pass rush along with Max Crosby. They've got the I can't read, his name escapes me right now because my notes blew up, so I don't have my notes in front of me. Wait, here it is. Okay.
There we go.
So we've got they've added Chandler Jones is who they added in. So when you've got Chandler Jones and a Max Crosby, they're also looking at bringing in Jason Pierre-Paul for 1 year. There's talk that they might bring him in. He's been around. He knows how to win. So we'll see. Different game than last year. Now, it's all talk about the last year, and the Raiders won in overtime, got themselves into the playoffs, and the Chargers got to stay home. And so that is kind of a theme of this game. Well, the Raiders beat them last year on what was, again, overtime, and a team that wasn't quite the caliber it is this year. There's going to be 11 different starters for the Raiders on Sunday than there were the last game of last year. And the Chargers, they've done, they're very healthy. Their resume speaks for itself. They have got, they've added Khalil Mack, and I think they're putting a little too much emphasis on that move. We spoke about that last year. If you look at what Khalil Mack has done since he left the Raiders, his numbers did not go up. His numbers didn't even maintain the same. He was hurt. He played so hard, like Jonathan Abrams has done for the Raiders, that you wonder what he's really got left. There's always that threat. You have to pay attention to where he is, because he's still got enough gas in the tank to get at Derek Carr. So it's going to be an interesting game. I do like the Raiders at +4, and I like definitely the over at 52 on that one.
I agree. I like the over. I think we're going to see a lot of scoring early on. Herbert and Carr. Carr has new weapons. I love 3.5 for the Raiders. I think this is a field goal game one way or another. Maybe even look at the money line Sunday morning, but that might be a little bit of a stretch. It will be interesting. I'm second chance for Josh McDaniels. He had that chance. I mean, shoot, it feels like 20 years ago, but it was, I mean, I know it was when the Chargers were in San Diego because I was there Monday night, essentially the last game Josh McDaniels won as a head coach. And that was, I think, week 10, and then just fell apart. It'll be interesting to see how he kind of responds to that. I think the Raiders are going to be better than advertised. And I think they do cover the spread here. And I think we see plenty of fireworks. 52, I think that's an easy cover in my mind. But Coach Lupian, what are your thoughts? Chargers, Raiders.
I definitely like the over on this game. And looking back to what Josh McDaniels has done against the more recent Charger teams, he's lit them up pretty well. And being able to address their pass rush, I would say look for a lot of short route running and dump offs to open up the deep ball threat eventually, and then put some numbers on the board. But you've heard Raider Jim's scouting report on his team, and they are a team that a lot of prognosticators like. And I think the AFC West is going to be one of those dog fights between at least three teams, the Chiefs, the Raiders, and the Chargers, moving forward. So it'll be an exciting year. It'll be an exciting conference to watch. And it's going to be a dog fight. So I'm looking forward to the high scoring that both offenses have proven to do. And we'll see what each team will do on the defensive end.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think, like I said, I think this, besides tonight's game, Rams, Bills, I think the Raiders, Chargers may be the most exciting game. Always seems to have some storyline in that one. So moving on to the second game we're going to be taking a look at. We stay in the AFC West. It's a little intra-conference matchup between the Chiefs heading to Arizona. The Chiefs are 5.5-point favorites. The over-under here is, I believe, the highest of the weekend. Don't quote me on that, but definitely the highest we'll be talking about today. 53.5 is the over-under. Raider Jim, once again, this AFC West, so the floor is yours. Chiefs, 5.5-point favorites on the road.
Yeah, I mean, what do you say? Kansas City is pegged to be the best team in the AFC West. They get the nod. They have been the best team in the West the last few years. You look back, though, to when they made their victorious Super Bowl run, and what a difference when Mahomes drops back and looks down the field. No Tyreek Hill, no Sammy Watkins, but he does have Juju Smith-Schuster, and he's got Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and he still has Travis Kelce. Kelce to me is still a league of his own, but at the same time, how many more years does he have? He is older, you know, as they get older, tight end's a hard position. Antonio Gates is one of the guys that I think of when I think about the tight ends who, you know, did he stick around too long? Probably. It got to be where he was in there, and it's not even like watching Albert Pujols, because Pujols is still hitting the ball 400 feet when he gets a hold of it. But on this game, the question is going to be, how good is the Kansas City defense? And is their offensive line feeling 100%? Are they 100% healthy? They're also on the road. 5.5 on the road is kind of a lot for me, because Arizona, fast. We talked about that last week. They're the track mate. They're good. Their defense, they're a little stretched on defense right now. I was looking at the injury report. Even on the offensive side of the ball, a lot of guys took days off. A lot of guys did not practice. So we'll just have to see what happens with that. But I don't like the 5.5. I'd take an extra half point, go with Arizona +6 on this one. Even 53.5 points, that should be doable. Do I want to buy a point and take it down to 52.5? Maybe, because you never know what's going to happen. But I don't see a full touchdown win for Kansas City, a 6-point win. I just don't see it.
I agree on both sides. I see this 28-24 Kansas City, and that gives you Arizona and it gives you the under. Now the over, I think, can easily be hit. Sometimes I feel like you have certain games where all signs point to one thing. And for me, that scares me, because it's, hold on a second. It's that, what does somebody know that I don't? And Vegas is smarter than I am when it comes to this stuff, smarter than I would say 90% of us, no matter what we think. So that's kind of gives me a little bit of pause, because you do look at these two offenses and go, oh, these teams could both put up 30 points, and it's very doable. I am going to kind of lean towards the under, though, maybe just because this is an intra-conference game. Andy Reid, Cliff Kingsbury, maybe not going to put all that stuff on film for the Niners down the road to see them, or this or that. So maybe a little cagey affair, not opening up the playbook as much as they can. Therefore, I do like the under here of 53.5. And I agree with you. I think on the road early with Kansas City, not a huge home field advantage in Arizona, but I like that offense. I think the defense can do enough, but I think they keep it within 5.5. But yeah, I'll take Arizona plus the points, and I'll take the under. Coach, what are your thoughts? Arizona and Kansas City.
Yeah, you brought up an interesting point way early. Week 1, I don't think anyone's going to open up the playbook quite so open this week. So it's hard for me to say, yeah, they're going to meet that over-under. So I'll probably take the under. But in addition, I mean, let's see what the NFL's a copycat league. Let's see what these teams do to address this KC offense with no old weapons, but absolutely new weapons, and see if, you know, sitting back, kind of like what the Bengals did in that AFC championship game, sit back and not let Mahomes get outside the box and let them figure it out, and just kind of sit back in that zone and try to pick apart teams. And the Bengals were able to just find ways to plug gaps and all that. So we'll see if other teams picked up on that adjustment that the Bengals did in the second half of last year's game, and address it toward addressing their defense against this KC team this season. So I think there's a lot in the air for this team not having the normal or the names that they used to have, like Tyreek Hill, you know, and yeah, Kelce is aging, but until someone's able to stop him, he's going to continue to do his thing. So I like the under, and I'll stick with that.
Yeah.
And
It's
they do have Edwards-Helaire. You can't look past him. He's a double threat because he can catch it, he can run with it. So they've got plenty of targets.
And that's, I think, the key for Kansas City, because it can be real easy if Edwards-Helaire was kind of that scat back. Well, if they're going to run it up the middle, we'll take our chances. But if Edwards-Helaire can kind of keep the defense honest. I agree. I think that's the key to Kansas City's offense. And obviously it's been a month, maybe two, with Juju and, Mahomes' new weapons, trying to kind of figure that out. Obviously Tyreek and, those guys, it was almost second nature, but it's going to be a good one. Finally, this will be Monday night. I don't know if it's a great game, but I think it's going to be a fantastic storyline. It is the return of Russell Wilson to Seattle. Denver is 6.5 point favorites in Seattle. The over under here, we're dropping ourselves all the way down to 44 for this one. We are staying in the AFC West. So Raider Jim, I'll give you the honors of getting us started. Denver and Seattle.
Last time Denver made a move like this, they brought in a guy named Peyton Manning, and we all know what happened that year. So, I mean, it could very well happen again. We'll see. Was it just a fluke year, the off year because of an injury for Wilson last year? And is he still the same caliber he was 2 years ago, 3 years ago? I think he is. He's got good weapons out there. He's got the running back situation is going to be interesting because Melvin Gordon did his thing again where he decided he didn't really want to go out and play in the preseason. So he's kind of the backup now. He's not going to be the starting guy out there. On the other side of the ball, you have Seattle, Geno Smith. It's going to be interesting to see what he does. And you've got Drew Lock as a backup. And I know a lot of people do not like, excuse me, I got a speaker going out of, my whole computer has a mind of its own. There we go.
There it is.
Geno Smith, though, it's going to be interesting to see how well he competes. Denver has a great defense. They've got good secondary. They're going to have a good rush. And on the other side of that coin, Seattle, this isn't the Legion of Boom anymore. It's just not. And I think if you go head to head and match them up across the ball, Denver's got the better linebackers. Denver's got the better pass rush. And so it's going to be hard for Seattle to do 3 and out and get Denver off the field, to get Russell Wilson off the field and let Geno Smith see what he can do. Do I think it's going to be a 6.5 point game? Probably closer to 6, but I think Denver definitely wins it. Under 44, yeah, because I don't know that Seattle's going to have, unless somehow they've got a magical scheme, I don't see them putting up a lot of points. Maybe 10 points and that, maybe 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I was very surprised that Geno Smith won that job. I mean, I felt like, Drew Lock really had to kind of underachieve in the preseason training camp for that to happen. And obviously it did. But I will say I have more faith with Seattle with Geno Smith back there. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I don't think they're even going to be really any good. But Geno Smith's kind of one of those quarterbacks, kind of like a Ryan Fitzpatrick, maybe not so much that Fitz magic, but there are going to be games. He might have 3 or 4 really good games this year. He might start 17 and only 3 or 4 of them are going to be good. But I think that's more than what Drew Lock will bring to the table. But I think Denver wins this. And a big X factor here is Russell Wilson. And not just obviously, hey, Denver upgraded the quarterback position, blah, blah, blah. Russell Wilson, I would imagine, has been very, hopefully in communication with the defensive side of the ball. Because if anybody knows the way Seattle's going to run an offense, it's Russell Wilson. And then you double that up with essentially 2 new quarterbacks in Seattle, in Drew Lock and Geno Smith. So you can't really change too much because it's kind of crazy to me. I agree. I think the under is a slam dunk. I agree. 14 points is the cap for the Seahawks, I believe. And I would probably be surprised if that's the case. So now you're kind of looking, well, what can Denver put up? Russell Wilson isn't a guy who's going to average 30 points a game. I don't want to say game manager. That's not terrible, but he's not going to be the Peyton Manning or a, Aaron Rodgers, something like that. He's going to kind of keep it close. 6.5 is scary. I wouldn't touch the spread. But the over under, I really do like the under there. But if you held a gun to my head, I'd have to probably say Seattle, just because the home dog, and I know they're not the Legion of Boom anymore. It's more, I think I saw the other day, it's the Legion of Gloom. But you know what? I think it's opening night. I think those fans will be there, and at least until they don't get or until they're given reason to sit down, they're going to be loud, and they're going to want to do well against Russ. So we'll see how that goes, but probably Denver covers in my mind. But Coach, what are your thoughts? Monday Night Football, Denver at Seattle.
I think I really do like this spread for Denver, even though it is on the road, because as more and more of these stories come out that Russ is agent this and Seattle's GM this and Pete this and all this, I think it's as much as a player could say, oh, it's just a game. I think this is much more than a game, and I think Russ has all the animosity in the world to do what he can do to make sure that he leaves his imprint on probably the last time he might play in Seattle, So I like that motivating factor for him. I like the weapons on the outside that Denver has. Raider Jim alluded to the defense is better than Seattle's defense. Well, Russ is going to look across that line and see no middle backer like Bobby Wagner and say, hey, things are going to open up, especially in this area. So, you know what, why not take advantage and let them know they let me go early. And if all the stories are true in regards to why he wanted out of town seasons ago, why not stick it to him where it counts the most on the field, putting points up, especially at that field. And I like Denver in the spread, and then I'll go with you guys on the under, but I like Denver in the spread. So again, like you said, unless Seattle has something hidden up their sleeve in regards to an offensive game plan, we don't know what it is. It is week one. Forgive me. Week ones are always bad for me anyway.
Yeah, I don't even.
Yeah. So it's like, hey, why not pick Russ in the spread?
Yeah. And you brought up a great point. It didn't even dawn on me till you said that this is more than likely the last time Russ will play in Seattle now with the extra game now. I don't know how it lines up every year, but at the very earliest, it would be 8 years from now that the Broncos would go back to Seattle. I don't see Russell Wilson still being in the league in 8 years. So that's a great point. A huge chip on his shoulder for him to kind of go out and try and, like you said, stick it to the Seahawks. So now it's time to kind of turn our attention onto the NFC side of things. We'll start in the NFC South, where coaches New Orleans Saints are 5.5-point favorites on the road against the Atlanta Falcons. The over-under here is 42.5. Coach, the floor is yours. Saints, 5.5-point favorites, over-under 42.5. What do you like?
I think the Saints have really had a rough offseason. There's been a whole bunch of turmoil with free agents leaving, stars getting arrested, cuts made that probably weren't expected to be, and really no new big names other than Marcus May, who we all read last week got arrested for assault with a weapon. So, I think the under-over's low, but the game's going to be different against the Falcons than seasons past. Seasons past, we've always faced a pocket quarterback in Matt Ryan, and getting to him, pressuring him, getting him out the box has been the defensive game plan. Well, now we got a guy like Marcus Mariota we're facing that's very comfortable running outside the box. So it's going to be more of a let's contain him and make him beat us with his arm kind of threat and go from there. So I like the 5.5 in Atlanta. They're familiar with the territory facing Atlanta in Atlanta. I think the concern will be, well, what does Marcus Mariota do? If he goes in and shows flashes of what he did coming off the bench for the Raiders, it'll be a close game. But if he comes in and starts again like he did with Tennessee, I think it's something that we've wrapped up by halftime. I think Jameis is going to continue on that upward trend that he was going on before he got hurt. I think Kamara and Ingram are going to handle the run game, and we'll see what kind of game plan Dennis Allen addresses or attacks these Falcons with. But it's a whole new regime, losing free agents, losing a coach to retirement, and it's going to be one of those surprising years where I think the prognosticators are writing this team off, and there really hasn't been much change. They're deep in a lot of positions. They're talented in a number of positions, especially the weapons position, getting Michael Thomas back, bringing in a local fan favorite, Olave, to the offensive scene, and then bringing the guy like Jarvis Landry, who's there. Those two, Michael Thomas and Landry, are proven wideout veterans that put up numbers. So we'll see what Jameis could do spreading the ball around, and it's an exciting time. I think the under-over is low for an indoor game, and one of the things that is most important is we got a guy like Will Lutz back who didn't kick all last season due to injury, and in the offseason he's hitting on a regular 60-plus yard field goal. So it'll be an exciting year. This game is week 1, and we'll see how they address a new Atlanta team that might show some flashes and might not with a new quarterback behind center.
Yeah, and full disclosure, after I sent it over to Coach, I had to Google who was going to be starting for the Falcons. I did the Mariota, obviously, when I saw it, it dawned on me. But yeah, that's kind of where the Falcons are at the moment. A lot of question marks at quarterback, which they're not used to having after, of course, all the years with Matt Ryan. So Raider Jim, you were actually got to see Marcus Mariota up close and personal a few times there for your Raiders. What are your thoughts, Atlanta and New Orleans, week 1?
I'll tell you what makes Atlanta dangerous, or what makes their offense dangerous. Marcus Mariota didn't live up to the hype when he was with Tennessee. That's how he ended up a reserve or a backup in Oakland/Las Vegas. And so he has not started a game since 2019. And a guy like him, you saw what happened when they gave him the chances and opportunities when he was wearing the silver and black. There were times that he went out there. I was like, my God, this guy should be starting somewhere. This guy should be starting now, and maybe not Carr. He played that well, I thought. So the other thing that comes with that is a lot of maturity. Not that he was an immature player, not that he was one of these reckless personalities, but I think he's a guy who's very cerebral and looks in the mirror and realizes, okay, this is my shot. This is my second shot to go out there and show everybody I really am. I can live up to the hype. I can exceed my expectations. And I think that's what makes Atlanta dangerous on the offensive side of the ball. I don't think you're going to see him come out of many games. If any, you're not going to get blown out because of him. Now, on the other side of that, on the defensive side, that's where Atlanta is going to have some issues because they were just abysmal last year. And I don't know if they've made any improvements, and especially with the pass rush. If I'm New Orleans, though, I'd be concerned because New Orleans is going to be putting in a left tackle, the blindside guy, and he was a reserve last year. This guy's coming back from a broken foot injury, and his job, protect Winston's blind side. And so I don't know how I feel about that. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Do I think that New Orleans wins the game? Absolutely. Do I think they cover? Yeah, but I think it's going to be a well contested game, I think. And I'm not going to be surprised if it doesn't go over 42.
Yeah, I think the over. I think they hit it here. And I talked about it, a few games ago. I think we were talking about Kansas City and Arizona. For the Falcons, this might be their suit. I hate when they say this, but this might be their Super Bowl. It's week 1 against a huge rival at home. Expectations are the lowest they've been since pre-Vic. Maybe pre Matt Ryan as well. But I mean, I go back to Michael Vick when they were just terrible every year. And I just, it's going to be interesting. I do think Atlanta goes out and they're just shot out of a cannon. But with that being said, Raider Jim, you hit it on the head. The defensive side of the ball is really leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, there were times where you could blame injuries or other factors on the Falcons maybe being lower than here, there, blah, blah, blah in the rankings. Not anymore. They just don't have a ton of talent. They really don't have a ton of talent like really anywhere. But like I said, I think this is a game that they've had circled that saying, you know, let's try and see if we can't get up 14-0 and get everyone to go, whoa, what's going on over there? With that being said, I would take New Orleans -5.5 because I do think they want to run this like a sprint. But at the end of the day, this game's going to be a marathon and they're not going to have the legs for it, AKA the defense. I think Jameis eventually does get into a groove. I think he has matured more in the last 2 years than maybe any quarterback ever. I mean, at least still playing. I'm really impressed with Jameis Winston. He used to be the butt of jokes and now he's almost the media darling. And there are a lot of people, I'm sorry, there aren't a lot of people that are high on the Saints, but I did see one guy. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was NFL.com or if it was a writer for NFL.com, but he actually had the Saints being the 1 seed in the NFC. I think that might be a bit much. But we talked about it last week, Raider Jim. This division, these are the games you have to win if you're New Orleans. You have 4 pretty much winnable or free wins. 2 against Tampa, 2 against Carolina. You have to get those if you want to compete. 5.5 is a bit of a big number, but with that defense that they're going up against, I'm still going to take New Orleans. And then, like I said, I like the over here. I mean, New Orleans might put up 31 points by themselves, and I think that will get us to where we need to go. And that's the key. So next up, we have a little bit of an NFC South, or excuse me, NFC South, NFC East matchup, a rematch of last year's opener. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to be 2.5-point favorites at Dallas. The over-under here is 50.5. I'll get this one started just because it has the NFC East team as the home team. Obviously, the Cowboys, their last 2 or 3 years, they've come into week 1 looking themselves in the mirror going, we are the best team in the NFC East on paper, and nobody can take that away from us. And nobody would. I wouldn't even have argued that. However, it's not ended up where they wanted to, obviously. It's a division win and a wild card quarterback draw with 9 seconds left. Enjoy. But for the Cowboys, a tough test again with Tampa Bay. We brought it up last week, Raider Jim. Eventually, Tom Brady has to take a step back. I don't know when it's going to be. I don't know if it's this weekend. I don't even know if it's this year. But 2.5 on the road in Dallas. I like Tampa here. You give me anything less than 3 and I'll be a fan of it because I do think it will end up being a field goal game for Tampa. And then Dallas side of things, or excuse me, over under side of things, 50.5. I think this is too much. Week 1, 2 good defense. You say whatever you want about the Dallas Cowboys. They have a really good defense. And they've always had a pretty good defense. Good corners over there as well. Try and kind of counteract Tom Brady. And of course, Tampa has been good for the last 3 years, elite, if you will. But so yeah, I'll take the under here and then give me Tampa Bay -2.5. Coach, what are your thoughts on Tampa Bay at Dallas?
I like both those numbers. I like Tampa Bay 2.5, and I like that the under. You're absolutely right in regards to the defenses, but there's still some questions as Todd Bowles takes the helms from Bruce Arians, and who's the guy that's replacing Todd Bowles, and what's that guy's scheme going to be like on the defensive end. You know, one name that you Raider Jim brought up for the Raiders was JPP, and that was someone that Tampa Bay has been relying on in the last couple of years, especially the year they won the Super Bowl. Now that he's gone, what's that loss going to be like? So, you know, it is another year for Tom Brady. It's new, but then again, like, hey, Cowboys could be paper champions in their own right, but as long as it's on paper, it never comes to fruition on the field. I think Mike McCarthy's on the hot seat. And I don't really know what to expect from Dallas other than just nothing. So I like those low numbers that are out there, but from Vegas, and that's very doable for any Tom Brady type team.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Obviously, like I said, last year, this is what started us off. This will, I think, will be an afternoon game on Sunday. So keep an eye there on that one. Keep an eye on the spread as well. I think we'll see some movement there, especially when you're dealing with 2.5. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Tampa Bay heading to Dallas.
Yeah, I just think the days of Tampa Bay are kind of not quite as dramatic or drastic as what you and I talked about with the Patriots, 2022 Patriots. But I think Dallas is going to get this one. Dallas +3. I'll take Dallas +3 in this game. Prescott threw for over 400 yards in Tampa Bay against Tampa Bay last year. They've got it figured out. And if it wasn't, of course, Brady did his thing, marched down the field, and they got the short field goal to win a game. But that's what it took. But I think you're going to see a lot of points. It's going to go over 50. And I just think the Dallas defense is going to step up. You wonder how good the Tampa Bay offensive line is going to be, and you wonder where Brady's head is really at right now. He's certainly almost as much of a robot as Aaron Rodgers, but I don't think quite as much of a robot. He can still execute. He's still good. He's still the professional. He knows how to play football. But there's something, if you look at the comparison for me of Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, when there's things going on in the media or the personal issues that he's had, there's just this almost indifference to the personal stuff on the Aaron Rodgers side of the ball. And he truly just leaves it in the locker room and goes out and plays. I'm hoping that that's the case with Brady as well. I've got nothing but respect for Tom Brady, but it'll be interesting to see how he plays after his layoff during the preseason.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Very, very interesting. So moving on to the game I'll definitely be keeping an eye on, and that'll probably be me and like 6 other people, because it's not going to be a game that most neutral fans are going to want to watch. But it is the Philadelphia Eagles at the Detroit Lions. The Eagles are 4-point favorites, and the over-under here is 48.5. Obviously, I'll get this one started. The Eagles have one of the easiest schedules in the league. I don't know where they actually end up. Pretty much at the bottom 4 are all of the NFC East teams. And the Eagles, we talked about it a bit last week. They have a pretty easy start to the schedule. Obviously, starting up here with Detroit. I think Philly -4. I love that. I love that number. I think the offense has improved. I think the defense has improved. Special teams, sure. I mean, nothing really changed too much there, but they didn't lose anything. I think Nick Sirianni has that locker room all going in one direction. And I really do wonder if this draft that the Eagles just had ends up being one that we look back on, because I know he wasn't a draft pick, but the AJ Brown acquisition was a huge pickup. Like I said last week, I believe AJ Brown is the first legitimate number 1 the Eagles have had since Terrell Owens. And Alshon Jeffrey had a good year in Philly, but it wasn't that sustained success that I expect to see from AJ Brown. And then on the defensive side of things, Jordan Davis is the perfect heir apparent to Fletcher Cox. That man is 6'7", like 380, and he runs a 4.5 or a 4.6. The guy's going to be a freak. And then, of course, a bit of a question mark, but middle linebacker Nakobe Dean, injury issues, fell to the 3rd round. But my goodness, if he can do what people expect him to do, the sky's the limit. And like I said, we may look back on this draft and go, wow, look what the Eagles did there. Now, in terms of this game, like I said, I don't know how Detroit gets through this. Goff's an okay quarterback. Dan Campbell's a great soundbite on Hard Knocks. But I think when it's all time to really get rolling, I don't see it happening now. The over-under for the last 11 years, Detroit Lions week 1 games have gone over. I'm going to take the over. I'll go with the history of it. 48.5. I think that's doable. And even with the Eagles probably going to win this game, I still expect Detroit to put some points up. Swift is someone, he's a game changer. I don't know if he can do it all by himself, but he's somebody who can change the game. They may be able to get up to 20 points. That's all I need right there, because I think the Eagles will get just north of 30. I see this one 31-20 Eagles. That'll get me the cover and it'll get me the over. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Detroit and Philly.
The addition of AJ Brown. I mean, wow, what can you say? They won handily last year in one game, and they only threw for 103 yards, but they also ran for like 240 or something like that. So if they can, they're going to balance it this year, because they're going to have better targets. They're going to have a better passing game in this particular game. They're going to still have the strong running game. I'm hoping, and I don't know, you'd be able to speak more to the strength of Philadelphia's defensive line, because I'm understanding that the Detroit offensive line is supposed to be pretty darn good this year. What is the status of the defensive line?
The one thing I think the defensive line has always had is depth. And that's, I think, the case here again. Obviously, look, if they run the 3-4, Jordan Davis, huge human being, well, he's on the sideline because Fletcher Cox still runs that nose tackle position. And on the edges, Barnett and Sweat are going to do enough. And Jordan Davis will never be on the edge. He moves well, don't get me wrong, but he's not an edge rusher. But they continue to bring guys in. I think the depth that the Eagles can do, when they won the Super Bowl, they were running essentially every other down, 4 in, 4 out, 4 in, 4 out. And I think that really helps, especially I think Fletcher Cox's career is going to get prolonged because, hey, you know what? We can put Jordan Davis in right now. He might not have the same skill set, but at the very least, he's going to be, 6 feet across where you can't run, and probably going to need 2 guys to cover him. And I do agree with you. I think Detroit's offensive line is probably the strength of the entire team. Yeah. So it'll be a nice little, I think, a little measuring stick for the defensive line, in a way that even if they do kind of get dominated, I don't think they lose the game. I'm knocking on wood as I speak that, but maybe in other games, when you play the Cowboys, okay, if we can't get to Dak, I don't know how we win this game. If we can't get to Goff, I still think we win this game.
Right. I would agree. And at -4, I'll take Philadelphia -4. The offensive line for Detroit, here's the other thing. A lot of people say, it's the 3 and outs that make and break teams and how successful they are. That Detroit defensive line, if they're strong enough to keep the Philadelphia defense on the field, that's not going to wear down Philadelphia, but that's what might keep the under as the betting point, because maybe they'll only get to the red zone, or maybe they're going to just get short of the red zone. They're not going to put up a bunch of points, but that could be the difference in a game being, 24-20, 20, or even 28-20, and that half point is going to kill you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a good one, or it's going to be an interesting one. I don't know if it's going to be a great game, but it's going to be interesting. Coach, what are your thoughts? Philly heading to Detroit.
Yeah, I don't really know what to expect from Detroit, other than if any of your Eagles knock them down, better be prepared to get some bloody kneecaps. That's all I know. Goff, listening to Raider Jim and knowing they picked up Penei Sewell last season on the offensive line. That's someone that's a security blanket for a guy like Goff that could sling it around the field. Not that he had that security in LA or the luxury of it, but I mean, there's some hope, I guess, with that offensive line. But I don't know if I just don't think Detroit has enough weapons. I've always been amazed and excited about the Philly defensive line. And we all know games are won in the trenches. And with that, the way you described how they rotate their defensive line in and sustaining and the freshness of the legs and all, that's where this game's going to be won. And I think Philly does enough to beat these guys to cover the spread. But yeah, other than that, that's all I could really speak on in Detroit's half. So
yeah, it's going to be a test for Detroit for sure. And for Philly, I think it'll be a nice little ease into the season. I know it sounds kind of mean, but it is what it is. So now it's time.
You know what?
Yeah.
Sorry. And you know what? And I'll say this: if it wasn't any team other than the Raiders or other than Philly or other than my Saints, I probably would be like going for a guy like Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions just because he's a great soundbite. But because of his history with my Saints, and that's where he came from to Detroit, I really like the guy. I really appreciate his old school mentality in regards to how he addresses his team. And you don't see that nowadays with all these offensive gurus and whatnot taking over these teams. You kind of have to appreciate that old school mentality or that old school value that he's bringing to that Detroit locker room. And in my opinion, I like to see and would be rooting on for a guy or a team like that has just been that perennial, cellar dweller. So why not? But they're playing against your team, and I'm gonna go for your team because I like the numbers in favor of it. So it'll be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting this weekend, but I agree with you on Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell is, I root for him, not this Sunday, but I will root for him for the next 17 weeks after. He's a great coach, great soundbite, and for the most part, seems like a pretty good guy. Now, got to kind of understand that we only see one side of that, but looks pretty good to me. But now we'll focus on kind of some of the other interesting matchups. We got 4 more here for you. First one, we'll be talking about Patriots at Dolphins. The Dolphins are 3.5-point favorites. The over-under here is 46. Raider Jim, let's give you the honors of getting us started. A little AFC East matchup.
I say yes and yes. Miami wins this one. They cover the spread, and I think it will probably go over on this. What's going to be and one of the reasons I say that, this would be the 4th win in a row for the Dolphins over the Patriots, and that's to say something. They haven't had a string like that against the Patriots. You have to go way back, early 2000s, I think, that they made that happen. And let's face it, Tagovailoa is just, he's coming into his own. And Merry Christmas, they brought in Tyreek Hill, who I still say is probably, if he would have ended up wearing silver and black and we didn't get Devontae Adams, I'd have been real happy about that. But wow, what a dangerous team they've got. Now, on the other side of that, Devontae Parker is now going to be playing on the Patriots side of the ball. That's going to be the matchup. It's going to be how well can he perform against a pretty decent secondary for the Dolphins. You got Xavier Howard, Javon Holland back there. How much pressure can they put on Mac Jones? And then can Parker get open? That could be where the game is won or lost for the Patriots. But I just don't see any different outcome than Miami covering the 3.5. And also, like I say, I'll give it an over. I can see Miami going 20, this could be a 28-21 game. There's your 49 points.
Yeah, it's times are changing, folks. It's not too often that we talk about the Dolphins going for 4 in a row over the Patriots, right, or let alone that the Dolphins are going to be favorites in this one. But they are. Coach, what are your thoughts? New England at Miami, the Dolphins, 3.5-point favorites.
Yeah, you know what? I think Tyreek Hill brings something new to this offense. I mean, why shouldn't it? We saw what he's done in KC, but it's going to be up to Tua to get him the ball. There's just a lot of question marks with New England and what they're doing with their OC coach and Matt Patricia, the defensive guy, and what's going on, right? Like, he's calling offensive plays, and they, since they let Josh McDaniels go to the Raiders, it's like, what's to be expected? I really feel bad for a guy, for their quarterback. What's his name? It's just off the tip of my tongue.
Mac.
Mac
Jones.
Mac Jones,
Mac Jones.
Yeah, right. And you look at, the promising start that he had to his career last year as a rookie. And it's kind of like, Bill, what you doing to the kid year 2? And you don't have that steady influence of offensive coordinator. I don't know what the QB coach's job is, moving forward with it, but obviously that person's not is it Joe Judge, the QB coach, that might be making calls?
Sounds about right.
Right. And so it's kind of like this is, maybe he just likes that kind of chaos starting the season, because all I hear from the media is like, what are they doing on the offensive side? No one really knows. And I'm going to go with Raider Jim's assessment in regards to Miami. They had their turmoil in the offseason. Goodness. And we'll see what comes about from that on the defensive side, and go from there. So.
Yeah, you hit it on the head. Joe Judge, offensive assistant and quarterback coach with the Patriots. So, and I've always been a believer that, some people are really good coordinators and just not very good head coaches. Wade Phillips is one of the first that comes to mind, arguably one of the best defensive minds out there, was not a very good head coach, and that's okay. And Joe Judge, maybe a position coach, maybe a coordinator is his ceiling. He is only 40, so we're not putting the coffin onto his chances there. But in terms of this game, this is a tough one for me, because I feel like the last 15 years are dragging me to the Patriots. They're almost looking at me like, are you serious? Are you serious right now? You're going to take Tua over Belichick, or, and it's almost haunting me. The 3.5 here, I think, does kind of maybe bring me to say, you know what? Let's go New England plus 3.5. And it's a field goal game. Fantastic. If not, well, it is what it is. So I'm leaning towards New England. In terms of the over under here, though, I like the over. I think we're going to see Tyreek get going. And I do think the offense, they opened things up a bit for Mac Jones this year. I think there was one game, and now don't get me wrong, I think the wind was like just monsoon level or whatever, typhoon level. And I think there was one game, Mac Jones threw the ball 4 times in a game. I believe they won that game. Don't quote me on it. But anyways, I don't think we see that type of offense from. I think they start to open it up. Joe Judge coming in. I know Josh McDaniels was there last year, but there's a chance Josh McDaniels' offense was maybe a little too advanced for a rookie quarterback. And I'm not saying Joe Judge's isn't, but there is a possibility that's something that, you got to keep an eye on. So I will take the over here, and yeah, I'll just take New England plus 3.5, only because I don't want to be that one and just look myself in the mirror and go, you really did that. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts?
I have a tongue-in-cheek question for you, Brandon.
Oh, God.
So is Bill
Which Brandon?
Belichick writing Midnight Bourbon in your head?
Oh, wow. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. Raider Jim has just ended this one. Enjoy the football season. We're done. I'm just kidding. Wow. Wow.
Now I know which Brandon he was asking.
It was there. It's like I tell my kids and my family, if you lob it, I'm going to swing.
Yay, hey, I love it. I don't even know if I lobbed it. You went out of that. Was one of the I was trying to intentionally walk you, and you swung and hit it out from the opposite batter's box. But you know what? All right, fair enough.
Did that Albert
I'll
Bell.
remember that
Albert...
one. I'll remember that.
Yeah.
All right, and moving on to another bit of a quote unquote revenge game. You got the Cleveland Browns heading to Carolina, the obviously AFC South here, but we're all looking at Baker, who will be starting for Carolina, not going back to Cleveland, but still playing against the Browns, a team that had, there are a lot of teams that had some tumultuous off seasons, but not too many sign a guy or trade for a guy, sign him for a massive deal, and then have to hold their breath figuring out when they'll get him back. But we know for a fact Deshaun Watson will not be playing for the first 11 games of the season here. Ray, let's start with you, Coach. It is the AFC South or NFC South. Cleveland at Carolina. The Panthers are 1.5 point favorites, and the over-under here is 42, the lowest over-under we'll talk about on this show. What are your thoughts, Coach? A little AFC, NFC matchup.
Well, in regards to Carolina, let me hold off on Baker. In regards to Carolina, I don't know what the status is of a guy, superstar like Christian McCaffrey. But if he's healthy, he'll be just healthy for the first 3 weeks. They'll be 3-0, and he'll do his thing. So what was the number, 1.5?
Yeah,
I like
it's essentially a pick 'em.
Right. I like Carolina.
Yeah.
In regards to Baker, like, I don't know, like you say Baker and you see him going to Carolina, you're thinking he must have had a bad year, right? But not the case, right? He just got picked over by someone that has elite status, but a checkered background. But it makes it look like it gives some negative connotation to Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield. I think Baker's going to have a wonderful year. I think Carolina will have a decent year up until Christian McCaffrey goes down. And 1.5 is an easy pick for me to say, yeah, I like Carolina over who's starting for the Browns, Jacoby Brissett.
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
right. So no disrespect to Jacoby Brissett, but he ain't Baker and he ain't Deshaun. And I hope he ain't Deshaun outside the field. But yeah, 1.5 is an easy pick for me. I don't know about the under over, but yeah, I like Carolina with this.
It's funny you brought that up with Jacoby Brissett. There was a soundbite of one of the reporters asking him, do you think it will be hard to not be Deshaun Watson? Essentially, like, you know, you're obviously the starting quarterback, but you're not Deshaun Watson. Will that be hard? And he just kind of laughed and went, it won't be that hard to be not be Deshaun Watson. Essentially saying what we're all thinking. But yeah, Jacoby Brissett will be taking the snaps going forward. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Carolina at Cleveland, or excuse me, opposite. Cleveland at Carolina.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it has been several seasons since Cleveland has won an opening game.
Mm-hmm.
And that is going to continue. I think Carolina's got this. 1.5 is just amazing. That it's only 1.5 surprises me. Baker Mayfield, the only thing that you can say about him is, like me, you're always going to look and say, that's a short guy. And that's just it. But if he can be a little like Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers, what always got to Phillip Rivers? His emotions.
Mm-hmm.
His emotions got in the way. And if Mayfield can stay calm, stay composed, he's going to have McCaffrey, at least for right now, like Coach said, for those first 3 games. Man, they could be off like gangbusters. And as much as I'm looking forward to see how well he plays, that's not the guy I'm going to be paying attention to. I am going to be paying attention to Ike Ekwonu. Ike Ekwonu is a rookie left tackle who gets to start his NFL career against Myles Garrett. And one of these great illustrious writers, you know, these guys make the big bucks. They are professional writers. And somebody asked him, would you like to start your career against somebody who's less qualified or established? You know, that's a stupid question. And the kid just laughed and said, I don't get to choose my battles. I mean, it was a great answer. I don't know. I can't do that. On the Cleveland side of the ball, I hope Brissett has a great 11 games. I hope he makes them say, we don't need to put Watson in the game. I'm going to be interested to see if Chubb can run against the Panthers, because they actually have some pretty good guys on the edge. And let's see if he's going to be able to put his running game together. I think he's fantastic, one of the best players out there, one of the best running backs out there, of course. So it's going to be interesting. But Carolina -1.5 all day long. 42, not a lot of points, but I'd even go under on that because I don't see Cleveland scoring.
You know,
Yeah, I don't see Cleveland scoring either. But,
yeah.
you know, I totally forgot about, and I totally agree with what your thoughts are on Nick Chubb. If they could get going, it can only get going for so long, you know, and probably if they have like a 3-0 lead at that point, try to run that clock out. But,
stop the count.
Yeah, stop the count, right? But no, I agree. It's Carolina 1.5.
Yeah, I agree. It's probably a pick 'em, you know, like I said, obviously a 21-20 will really kind of maybe irk you here or there, but I look at this as a pick 'em, and I agree with both of you. I think this is Carolina's game to get the job done. You also brought it up, Coach, with Baker Mayfield in Cleveland. I'm sure we've all seen the jersey with 24 different starting quarterbacks. Well, I don't know if I can go 2 through 24 and rank them, but I at least know who's at the top of that. And it was Baker Mayfield. You're right. It was one of those things where obviously, Deshaun Watson, take the off the field stuff out of it. Oh yeah, sign right up for it. However, you talked about, an elite talent. This guy has elite baggage. This is a guy who's the last guy on the carousel waiting for all of his baggage to get off of that plane. And we're still 3 months away from him coming back. So I'm not 100% convinced that he'll be back week 12 or 13, whenever that is. Some things can happen, as we've seen over the last year when it comes to Deshaun Watson. I think Carolina has enough talent, and this is their healthy point. Like you said, you got probably 4 or 5 games max with McCaffrey. It'll be interesting to see if they change some things, maybe in his workload, maybe, spread some things out, put him in the slot just to get him out of the backfield, whatever it may be. So that'll be interesting. But in terms of this game, I like Carolina. Jacoby Brissett, really good guy, really good quarterback, maybe one of the luckier quarterbacks to ever play. I mean, this is a guy who was behind Brady and then was traded to Indy and then sat behind Andrew Luck. And then Andrew Luck decided, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. Ended up starting and got paid. That didn't work out. And now he's in Cleveland, signed on to be a backup. And next thing you know, hey, week 1 through 11, we need you. So Jacoby Brissett kind of falling into that starting gig won't be enough to cover the 1.5 here. Give me Carolina. In terms of the over under, we're looking at 42. I'll take the over just because I do want to see some scoring in this one, because I want to see 2 of the best running backs in the game kind of stretch their legs. So we'll see if that does end up being the case. So moving on to our second to last game.
Let me back up one game
Yep.
to that Miami game. Here's a factor that I should have looked at before we talked about the game. I went on to see what the weather's going to be in Cincinnati. It's going to be 89 degrees, 80% humidity, and thunderstorms on Sunday in Miami. So with the 46 for the over-under, depending on how much it's raining, and it doesn't matter if Tyreek Hill is starting or not, that could very much change things on the over-under and how many touches he will really get, because if it's going to be like that, those aren't football catching, that's not a football catching forecast. You can still throw it around, but it's going to have to be more of those short in the flat, short over the middle, but there's not going to be those long strikes, I don't think.
It's a great point. It's probably one of the few ones. Obviously early on, we're more thinking heat rather than, when we're talking about December and you see at Cincinnati, it's like, what single digit are we looking at here? It's that time of year where we're going to be looking at humidity and things like that.
And I wonder if they're not even on a watch to possibly have to relocate that game, because I don't know what the hurricane watch is right now. I just know there's one barreling down on the East Coast. So,
I hate to say it, but it seems like every year it's that time.
Yeah. So they, who knows? They might have to make it, they might have to switch it around and move it up into the New England area where it's not going to be quite as potent when the rain hits.
Good call. Keep an eye on that. Moving on to the second to last game we'll be touching on today. We got Pittsburgh heading to Cincinnati. The Bengals are 6.5 point favorites in this one. The over under here is 44.5. I'll get this one started. Obviously in Pittsburgh, it is the post Big Ben era. What was it? Mitch Trubisky was named the quarterback, and Mike Tomlin wasn't very happy with the depth chart being leaked out. So he beats out Kenny Pickett and I assume Mason Rudolph if he's still there, but Mitch Trubisky will start here. Cincinnati 6.5 here. I'll be honest. I talked a little bit about it last week. I do think Cincinnati takes a bit of a step back this year. I don't think they're going to be playing championship weekend. There will be a playoff team, I believe, but they're not going to the Super Bowl this year. I don't even think they play in the AFC championship game. Just my opinion. I think there's a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover that comes through. And then on the other side with Pittsburgh, Mitch Trubisky gets a lot of flack, and deservedly so. His numbers aren't what you would expect for a quarterback. Hey, we could have had Mahomes, we could have had Watson, but instead we got Trubisky. I understand that, but you know what? I think Mitch Trubisky is better than a lot of people give him credit for. And I'm not talking about the Nickelodeon MVPs. I don't care about that. I'm talking about win-loss record, what he does for your team. He kept his team in it. And you know what? He's got a better cast around him in Pittsburgh and a much better coaching staff and a much better organization in Pittsburgh than he did in Chicago. I don't know if the Pittsburgh Steelers win this game, but I do think they cover 6.5. I think Pittsburgh ends up being better than most people believe. I don't know if they're a playoff team, but I think they continue to somehow, they'll go 9-8, and Mike Tomlin will continue to not have a losing record in the NFL. That's just kind of my thoughts on it. In terms of the over under 44.5, I think is low. Obviously, in my mind, if Pittsburgh's going to cover, you're going to have to score. So I'm expecting, some scoring at least on Pittsburgh side of things. So I will take the over there. But
Also rain in Cincinnati.
Is there? Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Cincinnati hosting the Steelers.
We touched on it with the Patriots and said they're on the decline. Maybe they're leveling out. Maybe they're going to decline a little bit more. But their days of being the team to beat are in the past. So goes the story for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Still good. Still, I mean, they've got great people on this team. They've got, I'm sorry, Najee Harris. That's the running back I was trying to think of. You got guys like that out there. TJ Watt. But that's not enough. And as you said, Cincinnati, are they going to go back and be the powerhouse? Maybe not. But are they going to be better than Pittsburgh? Yeah. Matter of fact, the last time that these two teams played was last November. Cincinnati just blew them out of the stadium. And I don't see anything much different this time around. 6.5. Yeah, maybe I'd take a half point and make it 6 just because. 44.5. Again, the only thing that has me questioning the over under is the weather factor. So until Sunday, when I look at the weather and see how bad it's really raining, but that I know that's going to be an area that's going to get hit by the storm. Pittsburgh just they do enough to stay competitive. They do enough to keep their name in the if this one wins and if this one loses and if these guys tie and if the bus breaks down for this team, guess what? They're going to be a wild card. And after a while, it's the Padre thing. Okay, I've heard that before. So let's call it what it is. And Cincinnati's the better team.
Man, Raider Jim is coming out on fire, and I have to imagine it's starting to feel a little personal. You got the midnight bourbon in there. You got the Padres thrown in there too. I'm going to go back and I'm going to take the Chargers. How about that? No, I'm just kidding. Coach Lupian, what are your thoughts? Cincinnati and Pittsburgh.
I would like to leave it up to the Pope to make an impression on me in regards to his team. However, I know Joe Burrow hasn't thrown one pass this preseason. I know he had appendectomy surgery this offseason. I don't know, and I think that was more recent than not. I don't know how he's doing. No one says. I don't check in on what Cincinnati does, but Burrow's a name that worldwide media knows and would probably give out information on his progress.
I was shocked because I actually looked up their injury report today and I thought his name would be there. Nope. And I'm like, I understand appendectomy is real. It's kind of like outpatient thing now. They can laser it and you're done. And maybe it's just that easy to get around. But I was surprised that no mention of him even, feeling any effects from side effects.
Right. So no one's I really don't know. That's why I'd like to just leave it up to the Pope to make my decision. But in regards to Mitchell Trubisky, he was with Buffalo last year, I believe. And I think he got a good chance to see what his game was while at North Carolina, watching Josh Allen do his thing. They were an identical kind of quarterback in their college days. And if he's learned from that, and if that's kind of brought out a different glimpse of his game, then rightfully so, he's won the starting job. But I mean, First brought it up. He's at a better organization, a better head coach, a lot more stability on offense than when he was with Chicago. Why not show him a little bit of love and confidence or a vote of confidence in regards to this? What's that number? 6.5 or 5.5? What is
6.5.
it?
6.5.
6.5? Yeah, like I don't think America was ready for Pittsburgh to beat Baltimore first week last season either. So I don't know if it's Cincinnati. I don't think they're going to have that much of that. I think they're too young and too dumb to have a Super Bowl hangover. I just don't think that they're going to be as upfront like they were toward the end of last season. And all hands or accolades to them last half of the season and making it to the Super Bowl. But I think there was a lot of what other teams couldn't do at the end of the season that Cincinnati capitalized and were able to do that got them there. So I don't think they're going to have the same kind of year they did last year. I'll hear from the Pope on Twitter, after he hears it. But oh well, it's the start of the season. That's what we do. We talk about these teams.
Yep.
And,
agreed.
I really like Pittsburgh. In the game. Maybe I'm just taking Pittsburgh money line versus the spread and the under. I really do. I think they have a solid defense. I think Mitchell Trubisky is learned, and I'm gonna revert back to my guy Jameis and Raider Jim's guy Marcus. They both sat. All three of them sat for a year, got to learn and see things from a different perspective. Not being that guy as a high draft pick rookie starter, and probably learning it a little bit more about himself and his abilities as a quarterback. So I like Pittsburgh. I like Trubisky. We've all seen those flashes he's shown doing it for an inconsistent Bears team that had holes everywhere. Now he's with a team that has a lot of stability, has a stud at running back, has a maker of men and coach, and someone that has longevity and a voice not only in his team but in this league. That from what I saw of Kenny Pickett, dude's a stud. So you just don't give the stud the job unless you've really done your part in the preseason or in the offseason to make that impression. And if he's made that impression on a guy like Mike Tomlin, who, he's questioned very little in regards to his decision making, maybe he's got something going on.
Definitely.
And being a conference game, I believe, hey, everyone's got to start out fast and from the jump and not let weeks stack before they get it going. So everyone's going for week one, and good luck. So
Amen.
Go Steelers.
Final game we'll be talking about here is an AFC North matchup. Got the Green Bay Packers at the Minnesota Vikings. The Packers are 1.5-point favorites. The over-under here sits at 47. Raider Jim, get us started. Green Bay heading to Minnesota.
Yeah. There was a game last year. Packers dropped it on a last-minute field goal. And usually it's the other way around, but Minnesota kicked the field goal, won the game. And that's why it's 1.5 this time in the Dome. I think it's going to be close again. Here's going to be the difference. This could be the difference in the game. Aaron Rodgers is fantastic, but Aaron Rodgers needs to have his weapons around him. He's got to be surrounded by these guys. There is no Devontae Adams. Alan Lazard, I find out, is questionable. He's got a hurt ankle, and he may not play. Mason Crosby, their kicker, didn't play all preseason because he had knee surgery, and they just want to make sure that he's healthy. I don't know what that means. Was it truly just a preventive move to make sure that nothing happened to him and to let him get 100%? Is he going to be 100%? Is he going to have the same power in his leg that he has when he's in fine form? He's one of the most accurate guys out there. But when it's a 1.5 point spread, that gives one pause to say, what if it is that close? Is he going to be able to hit from 45 to 52? Don't know this time around, but I guess, I'm sure they've got a contingency plan in case not. Minnesota's going to be out competitive. It's going to be your basic Green Bay and Viking game. I'm going to still take Green Bay -1.5. Might just go straight money line with them. It's going to be a close one, but I think they will prevail this time.
I agree. I'll keep this one short and sweet for myself. I think Green Bay wins this game. They cover the 1.5. And they kind of set the tone for how this season's going to go. The over under 47, it's indoors. Obviously Rodgers is going to sling it. Cousins is going to try to. I'll take the over here. I do think we seize the opportunity to see some points being scored in this divisional matchup. So I'll take the Packers. I might even just do money line just so nothing crazy happens. But yeah, I do like the over here. Definitely see some points being scored.
Yeah,
but Coach
they
Lupian,
put up 65 the last time they played.
There you go. Yes. Easy. So Coach, what are your thoughts? Packers at Vikings.
It's the Kevin O'Connell era.
Yeah.
For the Vikings. And I'm going to root on for the local boy a whole lot more because he's local versus because I just can't stand Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers. But, this is a Minnesota team that's played a lot of young players the last 2-3 years that got some work in and it showed some steady improvement. Then you got a guy like Cousins that we all know he just puts up numbers, whether, we like some of the passes or the decision makings he's done in the past. Past is the past. Again, this is the O'Connell era. And I look forward to what he could do other than our teams, the Eagles, Raiders, and Saints, if they ever match up this year. But I like the over, especially with the last tidbit of facts Coach Raider Jim gave us. And why not go with just the over-under than picking a money line or the spread? So go Kevin O'Connell, go Aztecs, go Vikings.
Amen. I'm not going to lie. I forgot about the Kevin O'Connell connection. Good for him.
All right, that's why I'm around.
Yes, sir. We're lucky to have you back, sir. So now we're going to need that every single week. We're going to call it the coach's nugget every single time, but we'll start with our final thoughts. Let's go to you, Coach. Final thoughts for this edition, week 1, as we get ready for a full weekend of football.
You know what? It's been a whole season, off season without you guys. I miss you guys. Fill the hole in my heart and in my mind. And it's another season, and I look forward to how many weeks we got? That many weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. Break out the hands, the toes, your ears, all of those. We got a long way to go. I believe February 12th will be the next Sunday without NFL football. So
and we'll all see each other in New Orleans because Raider Jim's fixing up that travel package for us.
Oh boy.
That would be a dream.
That would. Raider Jim, final thoughts here, week 1 episode.
Oh, I'm just really excited. And as I told you last week, I really appreciate being part of this week in and week out, as I have been for since we started this thing 3 years ago, whatever it's been now. For those of you who may not be in front of your TV or because you're just glued to the podcast, so why would you be listening and watching anything else? Inside 10 minutes of the first quarter of the first game of the season, Bills made their statement and they are up 7-0.
Yeah.
There it is.
There it is. For me, I just want to echo what both of Raider Jim and Coach talked about. Obviously, lives, things come up. We love this podcast, but at the same time, we have other responsibilities and things like that. But no matter how tough the week is, the day is, the year is, Thursday nights, being able to talk with you two gentlemen, it's always a pleasure. I always learn something new. I always laugh, even though, today I might've been laughing at myself, thanks to Raider Jim's couple little, a couple little fastballs he threw by me, but you know what? That's what we're here for. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. Just getting started, obviously, one of many. be here with you probably the next 5 months, essentially getting you ready for each and every Sunday. Thank you so much for listening to this edition of the NFL podcast presented by the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench, but we are first. It's time for you all to go wash your hands and stop hating, everybody. We'll talk to you all very soon. Take care.
Peace out.